Welcome, everyone. This is SatiSeva. My name is Julia. I'm one of the facilitators in the Spokane Sangha, and I am so happy to practice with you today. I'd like to begin our practice with sharing a sentiment of metta. Metta is loving kindness. Loving kindness is one of the 4 limitless qualities we cultivate in a Buddhist practice. And even before I read that sentiment, this sentiment, just take that in for a minute. We're setting an intention to cultivate a little bit more loving kindness in the mind, in the heart, in the spirit. Let's see what wants to be shared today. This is our sentiment today, this lovely image. Isn't that gorgeous? So this was sent to me from a Sangha member. For those of you who are new, and if you're an artist and you want to send me a beautiful painting, this is a watercolor with ink. Just know that I'll cut it up into wee little pieces and I write sentiments on the back. The back of this one is lovely too because it has all these blobs of ink splatter on it. I just love it. This one reads, "May you grow rooted like trees. May you grow rooted like trees." Oh, I really love this image. So let's sit with this for a minute. I'm going to close my eyes. And I invite you to join me in this reflective practice of mindfulness and awareness. I am going to read from the book a little section in the first chapter called Awareness, Awareness, Awareness. And it is inspired from a teaching I read a long, long time ago. And it was, in summary, it's a teaching where a student approaches her teacher and she asks the teacher, well, awareness, you keep talking about awareness, but what is it? And the teacher very calmly says, awareness is awareness. And the student says, yeah, you keep saying it, but what is it? And again, the teacher, she says very calmly, awareness is awareness, awareness, awareness. Which is both delightful and infuriating, isn't it? I love that. So let's play with that a little bit and come into the awareness of this sentiment of loving kindness using the metaphor and the actual tangible reality of a tree rooting. And I invite you to turn an inward gaze into this incredibly beautiful and precious clay temple that is your body. And while you and I cannot root into the earth as a tree roots, we can grow upward, outward into the air element. And so we can flip our perspective a little bit and remember that a tree roots in the air element as well. It may be a little less anchored that way, but it is nevertheless growing, centering itself, rooting itself, expanding itself, and so can we. Furthermore, the metaphor of a tree rooting into the earth, if we take it in a poetic way, what it is encouraging me to consider is all the ways that I find grounding and centering in unseen, indirect ways. One of those is in the way that I breathe. And I can feel in a very subtle way. It's absolutely imperceptible to anyone else's gaze, but I feel it in my body that I am grounding. I am anchoring whenever I take an intentional breath. Let's do that together as a community and see if that is true for you. When you breathe in a sentiment of grounding, of centering. And when you breathe out, see if you can feel in your body a deepening connection with the earth, your evolutionary birthplace. Breathing in this possibility of expansion in the air element, and breathe out this connection to the earth. Breathe in this growth in the air element, this expansion and broadening awareness. And when you exhale, exhale in sort of the quiet sanctity of your mind and body, your connection to the earth. And if you don't have a tangible connection to the earth, invite that to be perfect. Give yourself permission for that to be okay. And allow this moment to be an invitation to explore that. But only if it feels joyful and friendly. If it's one more task to do, abandon the exercise. We have enough tasks, and we are probably, I know I am, my most vicious and tenacious task master. Breathe in expansion. Breathe out rooting, anchoring, solid you, connected. Let's just enjoy a few cycles of breath, and then I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs from the SatiSeva book. Friends, awareness, awareness, awareness. When I decided to commit to living a spiritual life, I felt highly focused and motivated. That determination fed a peculiar feeling of urgency. If the feeling could speak, it would say things like, I need to know, and I need to know now. The reality, however, is I'm a slow learner and processor. I need to take time to take things in and look from multiple angles. Over the years, I've accepted that some insights need the patient gaze of time. I remember being in my garden checking for aphids on some basil. My youngest daughter was with me as I showed her how to identify the plant by its leaf shape and design. I recognized the mild glazed look of disinterest when it occurred to me that I could invite her to pinch a leaf off and smell it. I knew once her olfactory system was activated, there would be a memory imprinted within her consciousness she would never forget. This is how awareness works. My daughter pulled off a single leaf and gently bruised it to release the herb's oils. Immediately, a smile spread across her face. She understood that basil is the heart and soul of the pesto she loves in her pasta and sandwiches, and popped the leaf in her mouth. This was her first real spiritual lesson of awareness, as an experience of knowing without being able to explain the knowing. Once you know, you know. When you're aware of something, you are simply aware. To my mind, awareness arises the moment I notice I am working hard to move against the flow of something, like a river or life. My awareness invites me to turn around and float in a moment of surrender and ease. There, I may discover something new, something I missed in my efforts to resist. Without awareness, I am utterly fixed and out of touch. Friends, there are many parables in the Buddhist tradition that speak to this story that my daughter experienced. One of them is a great story of a Buddhist monk showing an audience a single flower. Without saying a word, the monk held up the flower and watched the faces of the participants in the temple. And there were so many concentrated looks, people fiercely trying to understand the flower and what the monk was trying to convey. And there was one student who initially was very focused, very concentrated, brow furrowed, looking seriously and intently, almost and leaning forward a wee bit. And then the teacher observed this monk's face begin to relax, the eyebrows to raise ever so slightly, and a gentle, soft smile across this monk's face. And he knew, this monk understood the meaning of the flower. There's also a story of a teacher asking a classroom of students, how many of you know what a rose smells like? And everybody raised their hand. And then the teacher said, okay, somebody explain it to me. What does a rose smell like? And everyone was joyfully stumped. This is awareness. It's hard to explain, but once you have it, you have it. It's a knowing. And the reason why this is the first mindfulness practice is because it is foundational. It is the place that we stand and find solid ground when our life feels like shifting sand. So let's put it into the context of recovering from some kind of habit energy. And it can be any kind of habit energy, truly. And if you're like me, what happens for me is I'm standing on solid ground, what I think is solid ground, my own awareness, my own knowing that I'm about to reach for a familiar habit. And I know I shouldn't. So I have this awareness, maybe a craving, maybe it's a temptation to open up my refrigerator because comfort's in there, or so I think it is, or so I've told myself it is, or so I've got some story in my head that says, Julia, darling, you're bored. Go find your soothing. And I bet you'll find it in the refrigerator. But my body's talking to my mind saying, yeah, but Julia, darling, you're not hungry. You've already eaten. And actually, you've been struggling with a little bit of heartburn. So if you overeat, that's just going to make you feel worse. And then my mind's like, yeah, but I want to be soothed. I'm uncomfortable. I don't like this feeling. And so it goes. My heart knows, I am fully aware that my comfort is not going to be found in the habit of food. But I can't seem to shift my behavior, my action. So sometimes I acquiesce to my mind. Sometimes I acquiesce to that craving, and the habit energy repeats. Sometimes I'm soothed. Sometimes I'm not. Most of the time, I feel a little out of sorts because I'm out of alignment with my own knowing. And this is the practice, friends, for me anyway. And what I've had to do with this practice is really begin to bring forward the heart. Sada. That's what this means, to lead with the heart, to let my mind have its perspective, have its cravings, to be reminded that my body has sensations and knowings that I ought to be paying attention to. And my heart's knowing is a reminder to be kind, to be curious, to be gentle. In the SatiSeva practices, there are tools that are introduced to help practice. They're called instruments of peace. And we'll get to it later on in our practice in the coming weeks. The one that appears in the awareness chapter, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because it's relevant for our practice today, is the instrument of peace. Would you look at that? That's the heart leading with friendliness and curiosity, which is why you have to say it in kind of a breathy, friendly way. Oh, Julia, would you look at that? Look at you having another craving. Look at this habit energy. It's always going to come up for you. That's just habit energy. That's just being human. It's okay. What are we going to do about it? What's it really all about? Are you really hungry? Are you bored? Are you sad? Are you frustrated? Are you annoyed? What's your emotional landscape that you're trying to nurture with this habit energy? Can we get curious about it? And friends, the minute I open that door and step over that threshold into this wide open arena of possibility, my craving dissipates. It weakens. It may not go away entirely because this is a very deep, deep habit energy of mine, but it doesn't become so demanding and governing. And I begin to look around. Wow. Look at this emotional landscape. Look at all these uncomfortable feelings. How do I stand with them? How do I sit with them? How do I be with them? And that is the question. And the answer sometimes is, I don't know. I'm just going to stand here. I'm going to create a little stillness in my body. And I'm going to breathe in, expanding my body like a tree. And when I breathe out, I'm going to ground and anchor myself and remind myself I'm okay. Breathing in all of this discomfort that isn't entirely clear. Breathing out, I'm okay. I'm not responding or reacting in habitual ways. I'm doing something new. Would you look at that? Awareness, friends, as I understand it and as it's alive in me, includes so much more than just my mind. My mind is a storyteller. Sometimes the stories are true. Sometimes the stories are not the whole truth. And so I have to hold my mind very gently and carefully with just a degree of skepticism and curiosity and wonder, really. That makes it more friendly when I go to explore. My body is a pretty reliable source. It's knowing I can trust. My body, however, is a place of knowing that I have ignored and neglected and sometimes abused. So my efforts in shifting my relationship to habit energy includes shifting my relationship to my own body and really meeting my body with a genuine spirit of healing, affection, and respect. And in that way, I can begin to really trust what my body is trying to tell me. My heart, in cooperation with my mind, is an extraordinary place of knowing. The heart chakra, as a reminder to all of us in community today, is an energetic place of coalescence. In ancient practices, the body was revered for housing unique energetic loads. The three chakras below the heart, representing the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and the solar plexus, meet and coalesce the three upper spiritual chakras, namely the throat, the third eye, and the crown. They meet and coalesce and mix the physical realm and the spiritual realm at the level of the heart. The wisdom of the heart is ancient, and sometimes it doesn't speak in words. It speaks in a different kind of knowing. In order to hear that knowing, to be with that knowing, we have to create in the body and the mind degrees of stillness, openness, groundedness. And so we practice. For the next few moments of silence, I invite us to practice again the simple art, really, and beauty of breathing in and allowing a metaphor of expansion and openness to guide the mind. And then on the exhalation, imagine the gaze, allowing the body to root, to anchor, to ground, to sink in. You know, we're an awful lot like our kin, the trees. We're connected to them. Their existence creates the air we need for this breathing practice. And so it's no surprise that they have been used as metaphors. They are our companions for life, literally and figuratively. The other thing about trees that I love, and I would encourage you to breathe in, is how they function remains a complete mystery to biologists. We don't know how trees can bring up through their trunk out up thousands, or not thousands, hundreds of feet out into their branches, the nutrients that they extract from the earth. We don't know how that happens. We don't know how they're so capable of defying gravity. It's a mystery. And that mystery is in you as well. So let's take some time to connect to the trees, our mysterious connection, their mirroring capacity, and their reminder to ground and breathe with them. Enjoy your practice. Friends, together let's take a step toward the conclusion of this practice. Breathing in, expanding, reaching, growing. Breathing out, grounding, centering, rooting. Breathing in, breathing out. Awareness, awareness, awareness. So for our practice of integration and sort of weaving what we heard today from the reading of awareness and from the wisdom of this community, is the recognition that the nature of reality is dualistic, right? So there's always going to be light and dark. There's always going to be good and bad. There's always going to be right and wrong. And so the spiritual practice is to cultivate wider eyes, bigger eyes filled with wonder to see that there's more than just this dualistic definition for each of our own lives. There's both of the extreme ends of things and everything in between. And as we grow in awareness of where we are in between, we're all somewhere on this spectrum between good and bad, light and dark, all of us. Some days we lean toward the light, some days we lean more toward the dark. The practice isn't to be one or the other or to find a fixed place on that spectrum. The practice is a little like greasing the wheels. It's about learning to be supple, to move from one area to the next, one side to the next, always in motion. And to do so with the four limitless qualities: loving kindness toward ourselves. Look at me, man, that was really unskillful. That was a dark mood. That was a dark place. That was a familiar, icky legacy of unskillfulness and misconduct. There it is. That's how it's manifesting in my life. Arrogance, aggression, hostility, it is alive in me. And it feels bad. So now I'm going to practice and move myself away from that so I can come back and grow and expand into more light. That's what awareness allows us to do. And we can't just do it for ourselves. That's where compassion comes in. That's the other limitless quality. Compassion recognizes we're not in this alone. There are so many people out there, some who are darker than my darkest darkness, some who are lighter than my brightest illuminations. And I can look to them as guides and understand them with my compassion. And then there's joy. Golly, if we're working this really, really a lot and we're grinding away, back off, lighten up. This is meant to be fun. And this is meant to be enjoyed. And even if we're raging, you know, we heard from a Sangha member who's witnessing someone raging. I've raged, we've raged, we all rage. Create an environment with a community of your friends and have some scream time. right? Lo has been with me in scream time. We dug a hole in the earth with a community of people and we screamed in it. The earth will hold it all. Scream, rage, and allow yourself to be held by the earth. So much of that frustration is that out of control feeling, nothing, no one's seeing me, no one's hearing me. The earth is a faithful presence. Be joyful about that. And then the last limitless quality, of course, friends, is equanimity, our capacity to include it all. Thich Nhat Hanh calls it freedom. And I can think of no better word than that. The last thing I'd like to say today is if you're looking for guides, if you're looking for real life contemporary wisdom to turn to, there are three voices that I would encourage you to amplify in your libraries and in your mind. The first is Gandhi. Gandhi came forward with a practice called Satyagrahara, and this is nonviolent resistance. And I highly recommend his work. The second is Martin Luther King Jr., who we celebrate tomorrow. His work is extraordinary, and he followed Gandhi's nonviolent resistance. And the third is Thich Nhat Hanh, who was also knowledgeable of both Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. And he used their skills and their wisdom as a way of creating refuge for his countrymen in Vietnam. And he created the Order of Interbeing, 14 mindfulness practices, which inspired the SatiSeva practice we got to enjoy together here today. We're all connected in the most profound ways. We meet tomorrow, friends, for our Recovery Dharma practice at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And I want to bring your attention to the chat so you can see our website, soulcenter.com, and you can play around on the website, see all the wonderful things we have there. I'd like to call your attention to our audio recordings. We do share these freely. They're on all of the podcast options and YouTube. We have an enormous library of audio and video recordings. May they be of service to your practice. If you go back and listen to some of the early SatiSeva audio recordings, you will see the development of these practices. You will hear the development of these practices in real time. It's really rather special. Email me with any questions or concerns. If you'd like to make a Dana offering, there are ways to do that on our website as well. We've got a couple of events happening. I do want to remind everybody tomorrow morning, 8:30, it's not too late to sign up if you want to meditate with me. I'm doing a year-long practice of meditation for spiritual and mental well-being. For the month of January, we are exploring meditation practices to address anxiety, and you can sign up for that. If finances are an issue for anybody, please let me know and we will make space for you. I don't want limited resources to be in any way inhibiting somebody from joining the practice. Lo, have I forgotten everything? Are we A-okay? Have I forgotten everything? Have I forgotten anything? Oh, friends, let's end our practice today with a dedication of merit. Breathing in breathing out. Let's just take a moment of self awareness and self acceptance that we've prioritized 90 minutes to be with ourselves and one another, to bear witness to our struggles and successes, to listen to the wisdom of practitioners, regardless of length of practice. We're all beginners and we're all masters too. That is the supple nature and the fluidity of duality when we're paying attention and growing in this awareness. We are both students and masters. I'd like to dedicate this practice to the heart of all living beings. So, with that, I'd like to invite you all back into your bodies and sit in a way where the heart is lifted. Shoulders are back, head held high, heart led, heart forward, sada. In this time of enormous confusion, hostility, aggression, ignorance, may we have the courage to lead with the heart. It is a vulnerable thing to do. It is a brave thing to do. It is a strong thing to do. In doing so, may we find places of refuge where we can ground and expand so the heart can lead. Today, when you go into your life leading with the heart, know that you are probably going to touch someone with your presence in ways you will never know. May that warm your heart. May that embolden your heart. May that bring peace to your mind and body. Bringing my hands together, recognizing that in one hand I hold all of the darkness within me, and in the other hand I hold all of the light within me, and I bring my hands together at the level of my heart, and I bow to the sacredness of my life, and I bow to the sacredness of yours. Each of us, friends, Buddhas to be. Namaste.